Alright, so we're going to go over the part names for the EOS R10. One of the reasons why I'm making this video is because a lot of times I'm looking at the camera on the commercials and they never quite tell what the buttons do. So as soon as you're going to get the camera, you're more so, enamored. I mean, it's a long time before you're going to get a feel for the buttons. So I feel like getting some type of familiarity will help. And feel free to go and play this video back anytime that you want to, because we're going to go over this whole button layout. So I feel as though it's best that we take this from the top on down. So right here we have the viewfinder. The viewfinder is an alternative to the main screen, because if you find yourself in a bright conditions where you can't see the screen, the viewfinder is the second best option. Below the viewfinder, you'll find this little, button right here. And that is to go ahead and set the settings on the viewfinder to get the inside screen to really just accommodate to your eyes. Alright, so right here is the autofocus on button. This can go on and be called a thumb dial. So when you're working the camera, you can go ahead and work your way around the camera using this button and or using a touch screen. Now with this button right here, this is the autofocus lock button. My fault. The autofocus exposure lock button. Right below it, this thing that looks like a book right here is the autofocus exposure button. That was my fault. It's actually called the autofocus point button. It also has a setting here, it kind of doubles, where you can go and use this thing to magnify whatever type of items that you're interested in to see if it's in focus. Of course, this button right here is the info button. Above is the ISO. To the right is flash. And this is your trigger button. Whether or not you want to go in and take multiple pictures or just one picture or a time picture. You go over to the left to go in and figure that out. And this is your trash can button. As soon as you go through your gallery, you find whatever that you don't want. And from there, you can go ahead and erase them. And this right here is your playback button. Now what you'll see is that a lot of the buttons are kind of like redundant sometimes, because they do want you to have multiple ways to really just touch this thing. That way it kind of like increases your learning curve and keeps you using the camera. Now this is the thing for the tripod. You're going to attach it there. And they made it pretty easy for us in regards to the battery replacement. Both the battery and the SD card is in one place. Right below the door. And before I go on and complete this little button on the left side is a quick menu button. So you press that and you go to the menu. Moving on, we can go through the control dial, starting with the automatic button. So what the automatic button does is the camera does everything for you. Your exposure, your ISO, your exposure, ISO, and aperture. That was the word that I was looking for. But basically, automatic mode does everything for you. There's no thinking about anything. FV is your flexible priority mode. So basically, it makes the camera able to go in and go through all the modes very rapidly. Shutter priority mode. Let's see, my bad. TV would be your shutter priority mode. And what shutter priority mode is, you control the shutter, but then you lose control of the aperture. So the camera automatically sets everything for you, depending on what type of shutter speed that you use. Aperture priority is the opposite. Whatever type of aperture that you use, you lose the ability to control the shutter. And the camera sets up every single thing else after that. And as soon as you've gotten some experience under your belt and you feel like you're comfortable enough, then we have the big boy stance. We have the manual setting. So what the manual setting does is gives you control over everything. The aperture, the shutter, and also the ISO. And anytime that you feel like you're like a little bit more advanced than that, then we have the bulb setting. So the bulb setting is kind of like your long exposures. So if you wanted like a streak from a car or want to freeze something, the bulb setting makes that possible because it lets you press the shutter button as long as you want to, and as long as you're pressing on that shutter button, that's your exposure. And then we have two custom buttons. So the custom buttons don't have any type of settings to them. You're the one that controls all the custom settings. These things are built for your preference. So whether or not you're recording in a lighter setting, a darker setting, you can go in and set the custom buttons to what you prefer. Moving on, we have the movie button, or the movie setting. So the movie setting gives you a little bit more control over your videos. They have 3 movie settings, I believe. One of them gives you 10-bit, the other one is manual, and the other one is automatic, just like in the picture settings. Now I believe this one is your black and white button settings. I've never seen anybody go ahead and like go over this in the videos. So as soon as you go in and put it here, you get something like a sepia or black and white, picture profile. And last but not least, it's the scene modes. The scene modes is something I'm going to experiment around with. I haven't had this camera too long, but I do believe that it goes into, several scenes that are meant for, sports, toys, or just dark settings. It's something like a shortcut. If you don't feel like dealing with the settings, it gives you a set of parameters that are close to what you want. And after that, you can go and fine tune it to what you need. Alright, moving on past the mode dials, we have the movie button. Now the movie button is close to the lock button, so it's easy to go and get the two confused. However, if you're looking, the movie button has red Red means stop, but in this case it means go. Let's go and start the movie. Now lock button is black. So if you was wanting to go and lock down all these buttons where you're not accidentally pressing anything, then that's what you do. You press the lock button. Now this is a little bit more easier. To the left and right, these buttons right here, they control the aperture and the shutter priority. So you just rotate the dial and get the camera to where you need it. And I never seen this when I was first handling the camera, but they also have a little small multi-function switch. So you have to go and experiment around with that because I haven't really just used it too much. But I think that this is a game changer right here if you manage to go ahead and remember to press it. Now on our left side, this is the lens release right here. This little mode dial serves as a multi-purpose thing. So if I switch this from the left to the right, that's manual focus, autofocus, and then also you can go on and press that button. So you press this button right here for a depth of field preview button. So these little rubber things are blocking me off a little bit, but right there is the 3.5mm jack. Above it is a little prong to plug in a remote. Then we have the USB-C, which can charge the camera. It can also transfer images, and that's about it that I'm going to think of. Then we also have a miniature HDMI cord, or a miniature HDMI thing right there. So if you just want to hook it up to your TV or hook it up to your computer for live streaming, you have that option too. You can use both the USB-C, which you will have you will not have access to 4K using the USB-C. However, with the HDMI, you may have a chance at getting 4K. And lastly, and I forgot going to speak about this, we also have a flash. So if you want to go ahead and take a picture in a darker setting, you have that ability with the flash. So that's not everything about the camera, but I do believe that that would provide a gist of the camera and its functions, so that way when you're using it, you're not as confused as I was.